At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Good morning and thank you very much. I am Yori Folani. It's 2 weeks after what has been called or is beginning to be known as a Black Tuesday. I'm alongside my guest, Tony Ofoyeton, lawyer and DG, International Institute of Professional Security. Tony.
Good morning, Uncle
Good morning, sir. It's great to have you again talking about these security issues. Now, Southwest governors have been meeting because everybody's concerned. You know, we're going back to that fateful day, in fact, horrible day, the 20th of 2011-20. Now, the events that led up to that and that got as bad as that, all heads seem to be leaning towards, look, this must never happen again, which is not the same as to say that perhaps there won't be protests, but we can't just generally lose it like that again. That seemed to be the focus of Arakuni Akeredolu of the Southwest Governors Forum, when he was saying that we have to find a way to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. And by that, I'm sure he meant the total losing it that happened. I don't think he was referring to protests because there will forever be protests. But then the management of protests and all of that. So that's on the one side. But there are all sorts of security things. Boko Haram is also part of security. You might say it's unrelated to this, but to what I started with. But over in the UAE, 6 Nigerians, it is reported, were convicted for actually funding Boko Haram. Now, not arrested, convicted. So it wasn't a yesterday thing. It's gone through the whole court processes. And so these are the very challenging times that we find ourselves in. Before we continue with the conversation, and of course you will be part of that, let's take a package that we've prepared, on the state of security today.
How did this happen?
There is always more to a story than the scrimmage line. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Every 1 hour, 86 migrants enter Lagos State. It is a beehive of activities. Every second counts in this city that never goes to sleep. There is always something to talk about. We go the extra mile to tell the story of Africa's 5th largest economy. We track happenings on land, on waterways, and in the air. We go against all odds to ensure that you are heard.
25% of the spread of Lagos is covered with water.
I'm Adeni. I live in Lagos.
The task of the leaders is to get their people from where they are to where they've not been. How do we hold our leaders accountable in the business of lawmaking and representation?
We're just living 2 days that some of us will not be in positions of authority forever. We are going to take over from us. So what we are doing is to lay an example for you on how to represent our people.
And how do the people ensure that their constituency projects are executed to the letter?
Any politician that wants to win elections, if he doesn't carry the CDAs, their local government along.
From the mountaintops to the deepest valleys, we're ready to go the extra mile just to show Nigerians a constituency project, both federal to state and to local government level. Please call 070-8492-3834. Know your representative with Maria, bridging the incredible job.
How did this happen? Why did it happen?
The entire building is on fire now. The entire building is on fire. They burnt all our cars.
What is the possibility it might happen again? These are some of the questions that precipitated the meeting of Southwest governors, ministers, traditional rulers, and security officers.
You're very welcome, sir. We welcome you.
The wanton destruction of properties by hoodlums affected many states in Nigeria, but none was as devastating as Lagos State.
Like Mohammed, the Honorable Minister.
This gathering is to compare notes to avert a repeat on future. Governor Sanwo-Olu is the man in the eye of the storm. He listed the level of destruction.
At the end of today's meeting and dialogue, we will also have engaged ourselves sufficiently to be able to see ways and means of taking our region forward. This is the NPA building and marina, and you can see. This is our famous, this is the only one in the country. It's called a forensic lab, media houses as well. TVC, everything there gone. Everything, TVC, OB vans, in and out.
They expressed worry about the incident.
We seem to have some measure of peace now, but we are worried that we must be able to sustain the peace. The youth must be engaged. Yes, we totally agree. Here, in Southwest Zone, what we have witnessed is more of a great attack on our own heritage.
For the Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari, the situation calls for sober reflection.
Youth have been ignored for a very long time. We can no longer afford to do so. The commitment to their future must go beyond talk, but should seek to equip them with the skills that can make them competitive for the future that lies ahead.
To heal the land and maintain peace, traditional rulers also have a big role to play.
We want a proper, close gap structure between our political leaders and the traditional leaders. They've been very far from us, and that's the truth. And they only come to us whenever they want to, every 4 years. That's when they remember us.
After the 4 hours deliberation, it was resolved as a matter of urgency that youth unemployment, poverty and insecurity must be addressed. Adedoja Salam Adeniyi, TVC News, Lagos.
Okay, thank you very much, Adedoja Salam. And we've also been joined by Philip or Phillips? There you go, we've had the S. Philip Agbese, human rights activist and public affairs commentator. Thank you very much for coming on as well. You know, so as I was saying just before you came in, it's a matter of concern. I think if the president has sent a team that is going around the country, teams, as a matter of fact, going to different parts of the country, interacting with people, because of the shock of, you know, quite frankly, the protest when it started, and then the culmination on the 20th of November, and here we are in the aftermath of it. Maybe, and we'll be joined, but first of all, let me tell you, before we get into the conversation, that we're going to be together to 12, thereabouts, 12 noon, but we'll cut away for our Nigerian viewers, because we're also keeping an eye on the Osun State budget presentation by the governor over there. So that will be carried live. And so for the Nigerian viewers, we'll cut away to there, but our international viewers will continue to see us. And of course, when the repeat comes, you know, people will be able to see the entire program. Okay, having said that, Philip, let me take it from you. The teams that are going about and the kind of work that they're doing, what's the sense that you get vis-a-vis the brief from the president, which was to go consult, I imagine, and maybe come up with ideas so that we don't have this kind of a calamity again, if I don't think there's any other word to call it.
Well, thank you very much. I witnessed the one in the Southeast, where the governors and the leaders of the Southeast came together to receive the team. And at that meeting, very useful conversations were held between the president's team and the various stakeholders who attended the meeting. And the fallout of that meeting was that the Southeast governors accepted one of the stark realities that we are being faced with today, is the fact that there has been a disconnect between governors and the people. There has been a disconnect between the local government chairman and the people. And what we have witnessed so far with the looting of public and private investment across the country, and the exposure that most of the governors actually did not disburse the COVID-19 palliatives to the citizens. And that boils down to the fact that our governors have not actually lived up to expectation. And we equally expected that the Southwest governors and the ministers, would own up to that responsibility. So while we'll see something good coming from the Southeast, we do not really see much coming from the Southwest, because our governors and ministers from this zone have not been able to own up to their own feelings. It's very, very easy for us to look at it as a national problem, but Nigeria does not exist in isolation without the various federating states and the local government and other units, other stakeholders. We have seen so far that there's a disconnect between the masses of our country and even the governors. They've not been able to bring about programs. And even in cases where the federal government has been able to identify some of these issues, the governors, the ministers, the senators, and other members of government have not been able to actually carry out these programs for the benefit of the people. So I would think that for a start, as a country, we have to take a holistic view to what has happened and sincerely address the issues as they are. This is no longer time for anybody to play politics. This is no longer time for anybody to hide the fact or to hide behind regional interests, to window dress the problem. We have a serious problem on our hands today, and we must tackle it as a national issue, not with sentiment, not with regional interest, and not with party interest. For instance, when the palliatives were not delivered, in some states we thought probably it was an APC issue, but it cuts across the whole country. Whereas the governor of Borno State received palliatives, distributed everything, some governors sold theirs, or palliatives meant for some states found their ways into other states. And we equally saw, from the warehouses that were discovered by the masses, that it wasn't just about an APC or PDP affair. It was a national issue, a breakdown of governance at the state and local government level.
Thank you very much, Philip. In fact, don't know if I can confirm this, but there were actually report stories that some palliative materials actually showed up in other countries as items for sale. But Tony, to come to you, first of all, do you identify with the sentiment that somehow there was a disconnect between the governed and the governors? I'm not talking about the state governor, those in charge of running our affairs, from the presidency way on down to the local government, that somehow the disconnect that Philip was speaking about, do you also feel that that is a decisive factor in the conflagration, shall we say, that happened?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. If you take the experiment of some houses being burned, some properties being destroyed, and some being skipped, and some governors, escaping, some senators' houses were not touched, some were touched. It's a product of to what extent have you been able to relate with your people over time. And I think that this is one of the beauty of democracy. Democracy is said to be the government of the people.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tony, because something you said in there, that the burning, the arson, some instances were skipped. Some senators, were skipped. That speaks to something there. That this was not as haphazard as it might appear.
Yes, if you follow the trend of events within the heat of the whole crisis and the like, even in some states where you see some senators' house boggled, let me use that word now, to the extent that even chairs and the like were removed. In that same state, there are other senators whose houses were not touched. Without prejudice to Dino Melaye's personal temperament, leave those one. You also see that there was the allegation that they were actually coming to attack his house or some group of people, and some other youth also stood up to say no and all those stuff like that. It depends on whichever way you look at it, but that's not, But
even some police stations, for instance,
yes, some
that
police
would have been touched, people in the community came out and defended those police stations.
The story of I saw it myself because it's a DPO that I know, giving food within that local. They didn't touch. It's Sherry here, it's Sherry here. The youth stood against other people coming to do anything in Sherry here. Olowora. They couldn't get there. The police station, all the shopping malls and the like were protected by the youth. Basically because the leadership within that environment were able to relate with the youth. So I think that just to align myself with what he has said, that when the people and government are disconnected, the vacuum there becomes a very vulnerable vacuum that is capable of containing anything. So if you don't want there to be a vacuum, you come close. And that is the essence of what we talk about governance. And that was why I was talking about democracy. I said something before this, and before now. I said, look, Uncle Yori, you were part of those that fought for this democracy. I understand your level of modesty, sitting down here and anchoring this program. In the heat, hold on. In the heat of the Abdullah crisis, in the heat of the Nagdeco crisis, in the heat of Radio Kudirat and the like, some of you staked your lives. Then the question is this. I'm not expecting an answer from you, but the question will be, is this the democracy you fought for? We fought for. Is this the core definition of this democracy? Because if you look at the subsequent action, I'm not talking about the EndSARS now. The subsequent action of the government, we are talking about a heightened tension. What I expect and I plead with the government to do was to look at modalities to do what? Bring down the tension. But when we begin to hear of a persecution of select or supposed leaders of the protest, rather than going intelligently to fish out the hoodlums that burnt the BRT buses, that went to shopping malls, the ones that burnt and killed police officers. These are, to me, these are the people that I expect that the security agencies will use to shine. Because these are actually the destroyers. And it is on the premise of the activities of these ones that you had the northern governors coming together, the southwestern governor coming together, the southeastern governors coming together, looking at the devastation that these men caused. It was not the EndSARS protester. So I expected, honestly, that, look, whatever you think about the young men that did what, that were the protagonists of the EndSARS protest, those that took over and actually made it to snowball into violence and snowball into looting and the like, were the people I expect that the security agencies should go for. Now, when I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the random arrest like it's being done now, where we've heard of people going to buy on the road and police have arrested them, 500, 1,000. No. Look, when you talk about arrest, strategic arrest, the question is very simple. Who are those that most likely, let me take for example, BRT. Who will benefit from the burning of BRT? That will give you a clue as to who most probable to arrest. That is number one. Number two, who are most likely have the capacity and temperament to commit certain crime. You talk about burglaries of shopping malls and the like. Uncle Yori, no matter how poor you are, you can't do it. No matter how open the opportunity is for you, you won't do it. Then it means that there are people that have been identified within each locality as either being miscreants, as either being court boys, or being area boys. The police have a dossier of each of the locality within each of all this environment that the police on their own can do what? Pick them and give them, invite them, interrogate them. If you pick 10 of them, you get one of them that is most culpable. That will give you a lead to others that most likely would have perpetrated that act. Now that becomes strategic arrest.
And,
but in a situation where...
What you're implying is that none of this is being done in spite of the skill and capability being available. Because it's not rocket science.
I've not seen it so far.
It's not rocket science.
I've seen people, I've had, and I know people that were arrested, you know, even while trying to board bus.
Yes, yes.
Even while trying to board the bus.
Seemingly to just fill the quotas.
There was one I attended to 2 days ago. Stays in Abuja, was about to go and buy tickets to Abuja, and they arrested him.
Well, you know, Tony was pointing there to perhaps dashed hopes. He went back to those who fought for democracy, and we hear from them. They paid they paid a high price, but they felt that it was worth it for as long as we would come to the democracy that they were agitating for, fighting for. Many of them had to become exiles and that kind of a thing. Now, Tony was asking the rhetorical question: is this the democracy that those noble Nigerians fought for and apparently got when we returned to, you know, well, I think, well, it's democracy, but some people say it's civil rule.
Well, it's
about dashed hopes.
No, there's
that
no,
we never got hold of the democracy we deserve, or that we were capable of, as it were, operating.
No, that's not totally correct. It's about personal opinion. As a matter of fact, the democracy we have gotten in Nigeria is still a journey, and it will continue to be a journey. Even the United States of America, that has become the bastion of democracy, today or yesterday, they are still having issues around their democracy. So we haven't actually attained that, you know, level because of our age and the democratic experiment. It was in this country that a sitting president died, and we had to amend the constitution to take care of that. So that journey will continue. The people we love to make reference to, they've gone into this journey about 200 years. We are just less than 50 years into this journey. That is, by the way, coming back to the EndSARS.
Yeah, but they've done all the work for us, so to speak. We can see the workings. What I mean is that you can see the workings. Yeah, you know, yes, they have the answer, but they took 200 years, and we could see all the workings. There's so many people.
I'm not saying that we must take 200 years, but I'm equally saying that it is not possible for us to start from the nursery class and jump into the university level. We must develop ourselves. That's just by the way.
I see.
Now, coming back to some of the issues raised by my brother and friend Tony on the issue of EndSARS, for me, I strongly believe that everybody who has participated one way or the other in this protest has a question to answer. Just like one of the political leaders from this zone has said, that both the protesters and those who participated in the Lekki shooting, they all have a question to answer. And that it becomes very scary when, you know, even people who have raised very serious allegations against institutions of state now begin to, you know, disappear from the country. Because, for instance, if I come here and I make allegations on air, and I'm invited by the State Security Service or even the police, or even a traditional ruler who wants, you know, an inquisition into the allegations that I've made, if those allegations were carried out in good faith, I should be able to stand, you know, to make facts available. For instance, the question of some of these, for me, I believe the leaders of the protest, they instigated the protesters, whatever name we choose to call them, because at the time that the protest was going well, remember that before the incident at Lekki, you know, so many police stations have already been burnt. And at that point in time, for instance, there was even a time they said the Lagos state government sponsored talks. But I believe that the Lagos state government cannot sponsor talks, you know, to burn down police stations. The people acting at that point were still the protesters. So whether we choose to call them by protesters or hoodlum, whatever name we call them, the issue is that some
persons...
There
was a separation, in people's minds at least, of the original, if you want, genuine protesters of that took on the moniker EndSARS, that everybody identified with. This was the youth. The president, no less.
See, Mr. Yori, we all identify with the issues that are wrong with our police system in the country.
Yes.
And to that extent...
And it is the EndSARS protesters...
Yes, to that extent, all of us. Yes. To that extent, all of us, including Mr. President, whom I believe at one point or the other has been a victim of police brutality. Remember that the question of police brutality is one that does not even spare military officials. We've seen cases where even police, will slap military personnel not in uniform and all of that. For EndSARS, the generic EndSARS, all of us are part of that protest. But at the point where a statement was made by Mr. President, and there was a declaration that there will be reforms in the police. Now, the protesters, as part of their agenda, the ones who are not genuine, refused to accept that concession that was made by Mr. President, not even when the Inspector General of Police said, I have disbanded SARS and we are putting in place SWAT. Because the issue is this, whether we like it or not, SARS plays a very important role in the security architecture of our country. And that is why today, without the police people on the road, we're having some of these security issues that, we've overcome long time ago, now coming back again. When you
say, when concessions were made, they refused to, accept them. I don't know. I was thinking, and I'd like a comment on it, that you can still make this distinction between the genuine protesters and those that hijacked it.
You see,
that hijacked it and were not bound by any of whatever the refinements were, lofty ideas that the protesters, even if they were inexperienced.
Yes, you see the problem.
People that didn't have any cause joined in the movement.
No, you see the problem we always have in our country is the fact that people don't want to take responsibility for their actions. We all want to be commended, but we don't want to take blame for our actions. If you are organizing a protest, most of the people who instigated the protest or who supported the protest from the beginning are not people who have participated in public discourse or public activities. They do not have any understanding of the people on the street. These are people who live, in the most serene environment in our country. That was why during the protest, you could see, it's very funny that a man that is truly angry about the reforms, and I believe that when you guys fought for democracy many years back, you didn't do that with Suya on the express road.
Don't mind Tony Ojari.
Okay.
When those noble people fought for democracy.
When those noble Nigerians fought for democracy. There was no pizza, on the highway. There was no ram. They were not drinking alcohol.
I hear you.
Good. And this, this, as a matter of fact, is a thing of shame for my generation that will lead a very good struggle and mismanage the struggle. Because at the point that concessions were made by the president, I read a letter even by Chief Doyi Okukwe calling on the protester that, yes, at this point you have scored a very good goal. Concretize on the gains so far and move forward. Nominate leaders at various levels through the use of the internet or social media so that these people can now go to the drawing table. But you see, this is the problem we had with the protests. The instigators, those who actually never meant well for the country and will never mean well for the country, told them, because they participated in the protest and were very vocal, told them not to meet with the government. And as a matter of fact, no matter how beautiful your automobile is, if it has no brake, you are very, very sure that it is going to land you at the wrong part of the road. So I strongly hold that all of us that have participated in that protest, including myself, directly or indirectly, we should make ourselves available, not to run out of the country. Remember again, that there was even part of the crisis we had. Some persons abroad made videos directing people to attack certain people. It took, Nigerians and people from their ethnic group to come out to disown them. These people have acted poorly, to exacerbate the crisis.
Okay, you yourself said that when I posed the question that led to this, that actually there's plenty that is a matter of opinion for the moment. And so I want to bring what you have said to Tony, because it would seem to me that Philip is not entirely persuaded of the altruistic purpose of the words he used, instigators, which is not a very fine word in terms of, it's not a friendly word, the instigators of the EndSARS protest. Even as elders, the president, the Inspector General of Police conceded to these protesters that you have a point, we've seen the point, and give us time to address it. Of course, things didn't go as we expected from there on. But Tony is now asking the question, which is a very interesting one. Those that were part of the forefront of it, this is the time when you have now an environment to go there and give evidence, have your say. These people, if I am paraphrasing Tony right, are now... Philip, if I'm paraphrasing him right, are not making themselves available. And indeed, some of them want to leave the country, which has led, of course, to government checkmating some actions, and that also is joining the protest.
Well, let me start by saying that none of these people have ever been invited to any of the... But there are these committees that have been set up. Yes, committees were set up. But you would also agree with me that, there are people it's an investigative committee, inquiry. Inquiry, okay, yes. Yes, and it's a product of whether you want to go there, and except there's the necessity for you to be there. That is one. Secondly, as opposed to them, noting some people and directly inviting them, you're saying there's a difference between making it open. Now everybody can come. Yes. Ebuadi Gurua, who I think is involved in Lagos, he's even gone on is it social media? I think it's social media, inviting anybody who has anything at all to say, please come forward. It's a matter of whether they are interested in the panel or not. That is one. I think that if we handle protest in this manner, the implication is that we may not be giving room for subsequent peaceful protests. When we begin to have, indicting narrative, the fact remains that I've been involved in protests as a student. I've been involved in protests from Babangida time down to Abacha's time and all those stuff like that. Yes, I've been involved in student protests and all those stuff like that. And I will tell you with all audacity that there has never been any protest as organized and as peaceful as the EndSARS protest, precursor to the hijacking. None. And now that it wouldn't it have been better that they ate pizza than that they were carrying cutlasses and the like? I think the reference to that is really a reference to the sponsorship. Now, let's leave the issue to try and understand these issues. I think this whole matter of pizza is a product of the same thing with what happened at Ojota. At Ojota, precursor to the removal of Jonathan, every human being that were aggrieved about Jonathan's administration came there with all manner of food. All manner of food. Musicians came there to play. So it's not a matter of that they came with pizza and all those stuff. Those things to me, and if you go to even protests all over the world too, you see instances, they protest in different ways. Some would just say, I am there for the entertainment, for example. Some will say, just get there, carry placard. Some want to listen to music. Some want to listen to the speeches and all that. But the cardinal point is that once there is no violence in protest, it should be accepted. It should be encouraged. Now, the hijacking of the protest, if you ask me, I will indict the police. I will indict the security apparatus of the state and of the federal government. When protest like that is happening, it is your statutory responsibility to give protection to the protesters and not to also withdraw your services from other areas in the state. You will discover, if you flash back, immediately the issue of end protest started. What happened was that the police technically withdrew its services. Even before police stations were being burnt and being attacked and the like, they had already withdrew from the road, knowing full well that a state like Lagos that is bigger than all the whole West African countries and the population and all those stuff like that, you have about between 20 and 22 million human beings, and out of that 22 million human beings, you have about 6 million unemployed youths. The least I expected, if you do a risk vulnerability analysis of the tendency of a breach of security within that time, the police knew better that most probably there would be a breach, not by the protesters. They were in Alausa.
You know,
you
know how they say hindsight is always 20/20 vision. I wonder if this could apply. Some of the things that Tony has said that they know. You know, don't forget that this thing took all of us by surprise.
Well, no, I'm not talking of the protest. No, Mr. I'm talking of, you know, when a protest happens, even if it is spontaneous, it also means that the security apparatus must also spontaneously be there.
You react to it.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes, I do.
Now, you see, so it's as simple as that. And the issue of that the protesters have to be at the panel to answer questions and the like, I don't think that makes...
Please. Yes.
If you are talking about... let me quickly address and all those stuff. Yes. It's understandable.
Okay.
No. I think for the first time, I will have the guts to defend the police of our country. You don't expect a man who has already been accused, you know, to still come, you know, to become an actor.
It was not the police that was accused. It was a section of the police. SARS.
Hold on.
Even in the
we take that clarification. We take that clarification.
Policemen drinks.
No, we take that Tony. We take that clarification you have added. That it was not the police. It was SARS, a unit of the police. But they still were all policemen.
Hold on. When policemen were killed, the police people that have been killed, we don't know whether they are even members of the mobile unit or SARS. All the police people who were killed across the country, we cannot say are members of SARS. And as a matter of fact, there was a case of one Akuzu in Anambra, a SARS person who committed all the atrocities. His police station was not burnt down. There was no police station in Anambra State that was burnt down. To say, okay, we have identified Akuzu as the one who committed those infractions against the people of Anambra State. But police stations in Lagos were burnt down. Policemen were killed. That is, by the way. Now, he made a statement that the protesters are not under obligation to attend the sittings. That is very true. But those who have made allegations against the state, those who have made allegations, who have made contributions,
which type of allegations?
Those who have made vocal contributions to the issues on ground. It makes no sense. And I do not expect a man of Tony's understanding and reasoning in the society to say that appearing before the panel should be a thing of choice. It is not a thing of choice. It is for those. People have made allegations. People have taken part. I'm not saying that everybody, you know, who has participated in the protest should go there. But people who have made, you know, who have contributed more than just passive participation in the protest. Those who have been identified as leaders of the protest. Those who were on social media distributing money to people calling on them to participate in the protest. And those who claim to have videoed, you know, those who claim to have taken videos and photographs of, you know, some of the incidences around the protest.
I think it's important we get some things right.
Gentlemen,
the panel is an inquiry.
Yes.
The panel is not a court. Whatever decision, whatever inquiry, whatever investigation that the report the panel comes with, as far as the law is concerned, is inconsequential.
It's going to be a recommendation.
Yes, it's just going to be a mere recommendation.
Okay.
That is one thing that we must understand.
I hear you.
Excuse me, please. That somebody called for support of EndSARS, how does that constitute either a crime or an indictable thing or something that will not make you to stand before a panel? For what? Even at international level, even the United Nations supports EndSARS.
Well,
even the United Nations supports EndSARS.
The protest went bad and as a result of which, all
so
these
if the
committees
protest
of
went bad, the
inquiries.
question should be, why did it go bad?
Well, that is exactly why
that is
perhaps
what the inquiry
the inquiry is going to be able to aim at. But gentlemen, please, because we also have yet another guest that we haven't heard from, Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, retired. He's also on the phone, as he often is, former military officer and indeed former deputy head of security at the African Union Commission, Addis Ababa region. Good morning, Group Captain.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. As you must have heard, we're looking at efforts and trying to understand in the aftermath of the EndSARS protest how this will not happen again. The president, as you are aware, has sent out teams to all parts of the country to meet with traditional rulers and that kind of a thing. So, and from studio, we've been getting some opinions, and we'd like you to also bring your analysis to the matter. Philip, for instance, feels that there are part of the EndSARS protest that didn't necessarily mean very well for the country. There's also the thought that EndSARS can be separated as a unit, as a protest, and then those that hijacked it is a totally different kettle of fish altogether. Your viewpoint, Group Captain.
Thank you very much. First, in this EndSARS protest, honest, I see lessons, valuable lessons for all the stakeholders in this issue. First, there is the issue of the constitutional fundamental rights of freedom of association, which initially is what the protesters said they are doing, and under the Constitution, that is protected. There is no doubt about that. But on the other hand, again, the government has a role to make a decision. Is there a point, a time, where peaceful protest has turned to riot? If the answer is in the affirmative, the government has a role to make sure that the riot is suppressed or insurrection is suppressed, as it's provided in Section 217 and 218 of the Constitution. Which brings us to the issue of, should military or police be deployed? Again, in all honesty, unless we change our Constitution, the issue of deploying military for insurrection is adequately covered in the Constitution. It may not be so in other countries, but when you are talking about Nigeria, we have to bring it home. Right now, deployment of military is allowed under the Constitution, because 217C says that the armed forces can be used for suppressing insurrection and acting in aid of civil authorities to restore order when called upon to do so by the president, but subject to conditions as may be prescribed by the National Assembly.
And now, probably as a last resort. And probably as a last resort.
As a last resort. But the issue of the presence of military is covered as long as they have been deployed by the civil authorities, as is precisely said in 217C of the Constitution. We should not be asking why are military there or why military are not there. Now, having deployed the military again, training and even the available equipment on the military or any security agency, and also the circumstances at the time when the strike was going on, will guide the action of what the security man, be he military man, be he police, to do. One thing we seem to forget in this thing is that once the military or police is deployed effectively, they will go with the equipment they have. The training and the rules of engagement and rules of use of force, which should have been clear, will tell them that as a security man, you also have the inherent right of self-defense. What does it mean? A security man sent to protect riot, he, at the point of action, will make a decision at a certain time. Is my life in danger? Is the life of my colleagues in danger? It is only him, not even the president, not even the IGP, not even the chief of army staff that will make that decision. Accordingly, if he finds that his life is in danger due to circumstances, he can use any force, including up to deadly force, to protect himself or protect his colleagues.
Yeah, but that was something that didn't seem to be available to the police. The police was overwhelmed, is why the army was brought on the scene.
Exactly. I overlooked that. Actually, the drill should be police is usually deployed. Now, at a certain time, the police will make the decision whether their action is enough to bring down the riot, because maybe we are in the region of riot now or not. If they make the decision that they are no longer in position to control the riot, they will make an application to the authorities that they want the military to come and take over. This is beyond us. Now, in all honesty, I'm not here to tell you whether we follow this procedure or not, but that should be the procedure. Once the civil authorities decide that, okay, the military should be sent in, they will order the military. The military man doesn't have any problem. If he's ordered to go by the civil authority, he will have to go. He has no option. But the actions that he takes at the place, again, is a function of training, it's a function of equipment, it's a function of the circumstances he made. And while he's doing that work also, his right to self-defense is always there. People make a lot of issues about the protesters being unarmed or being armed or unarmed. Let's assume they are unarmed. I personally teach rules of engagement and rules of use of force. The circumstances will decide whether an unarmed group poses a threat to a security man or not. Just for precision, let me give you an example. If you have 2 soldiers at a checkpoint armed, and you have about 100 unarmed people coming, the drill is that at a certain distance, these soldiers will tell them stop or withdraw. Depending on the action, if these protesters disperse or withdraw, then the point has been made. If these protesters continue coming, at a certain distance again, the security man will make the decision that, okay, these people are 100 or they are 50 and we're only 2. If I allow them to come close, they may disarm me, they may even kill me. He might fire warning shots over their heads in that circumstances. If they continue approaching, if that works fine. If it doesn't work out, then if they continue coming at a certain distance, maybe 100 or 50 meters, depending on the man there, he will make the decision that, look, if I allow these people to come, they will disarm me. And in all honesty, it has to be known that the security man has to protect his weapon with his life, with any force available in military. So if these people continue coming, here I'm making conjectures. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just giving you the criteria. If they continue coming, and this person believes that his life or the life of his colleagues is in danger, he has fired warning shots, they are still coming. In all honesty, even if they are unarmed, in the circumstances I painted, 50 or 100 coming against 2 people at a duty post, he could fire using deadly force. This is just the issue I want people to understand. Yes, training in rules of and clearly spelled out rules of engagement will ensure that appropriate, reasonable force is used at any point. But the decision which force is reasonable is left to the security man that is on the ground. Putting at the back of our minds that nobody said it. Look, if you tell a soldier or a policeman that we are sending you to go and quell riot, but you are not in position to do anything to protect your own life, I don't think people will even agree to enter into the police or into the military. So that inherent right of self-defense, which again is even guaranteed in the Constitution, every person, whether in the military, whether in security or not, has the right to self-defense. Where you make a decision that your life is in danger, you could use any force, including up to deadly force. Having said that, again, like I said, the issue is a graduated response. The security man will respond in a graduated manner.
Okay, Group Captain. Okay, Group Captain, thank you very much, because we've also been listening to you, my guest in studio, by the way, Tony Ofoyeton, DG Institute of Professional Security, and Philip Agbese, human rights activist. We've all been listening very closely to what you've been saying. Tony, as we started off, and also for you, Group Captain, we're not just limiting ourselves to the EndSARS protest. We're looking at securities, the security of different parts of the country and different spheres. The news that Boko Haram sponsors in the UAE were also convicted is different from being arrested or being tried. Were actually convicted. And the problems we're having with Boko Haram, that the army that we're talking about now in this context has not been able to get on top of, it's pointing to security situations that are worrisome. So much so that there are even some who are circulating in social media that what we've just seen, I think one elder from the north was saying that this is just the tip of the iceberg and that it's not yet Uhuru. Well, I hope not.
I hope not, too. Yes, when I got the news, I was a little bit not too surprised, but surprised. But having said so, I will still premise it on the fact that You know, the political will, if you look at some
Joshua, in Irewolide, I'll get right to you. I just want 20 to land, and then I'll...
Yes, whether we are really serious about prosecuting the war against terrorism in this country is one very serious issue begging for answer, because we've been prosecuting the war against terrorism for the past 1.5 decades or thereabout now. And within just a few moments, we are hearing that Dubai is 99% Muslim nation. But look at the level of intolerance to terrorism. Now, look also at the fact that these guys that were convicted are Nigerians. It's not as if they are Nigerians. Convicted there, 2 of them sent to life imprisonment, the rest to 10 years imprisonment. Now, they've also been able to mention the fact that they transferred this money through Bureau de Change. And they also mentioned the Bureau de Change, the name of the person, right here. The least I expected DSS to do as it is now, which I assume most likely they have done, I assume, is to go into... Now, let's assume you couldn't because it's another country. They were able to. But here you are, you also have a lead now. Don't forget that I've said these things, you know, time over time that, look, they sponsor.
Okay, let's allow we have a call, Joshua, to not eat further into his credit. Good morning, sir. Carry on, please.
Okay, morning to your guest.
Yes.
There is an important part to this protest matter that we should bring forth.
Sure.
I think we as citizens, we could maybe express ourselves through protest. But protest too is a last resort. It's not our first.
Okay.
So there's a need to educate the public on the use of protest, because it seems some people just take it. As soon as you get angry, you think you don't have the right to converse or dialogue. You just go into protest. We should know that protest always almost lead to violence. Now, the point of violence in protest is this. On the protest ground, why for me I cannot separate the protest from the violence, there are conversations going on. When somebody says we are going to burn down Nigeria, if they come to us, this is what we are going to do, you are already activating an action on a protest ground. Now, you know yourself, but you don't know everybody. So when it comes to protest, maybe it is time to be educating ourselves about the laws. That, look, you have the right to use protest, but other people have rights while you are protesting. Uncle Yori, let me say that during that protest, they are talking about it being organized. But I have engaged myself in protest before. I don't see a protest where you shut down an economy or a system, or you block a major road and say nobody passes for 1 week. I was a student unionist. We had protests. And this idea of protesting and then you are eating and partying, sorry, I don't know what is meant by that. Protest is always spontaneous and meant to address an issue that borders on pain on the people. You don't have time for partying. You don't have time for all this. We hit the street, we're running, we're trying to make a point. So when it comes to a party, it becomes something else. And finally, even if that protest is found out to be sponsored, it means it wasn't in public good. It was meant to promote a private agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joshua, for calling in. And let me take the very, very last few words that he said in there, because it goes back to, I want to sort of get a bit more from your insight in this matter about, you seem to indicate that not all of the protesters, in your view, had the good of the nation at heart.
Of course. We saw that at the Abuja protest ground when a certain individual appeared at the protest ground.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The point Mr. Joshua made about protests are spontaneous, I wonder, would you want to challenge that? Aren't some protests planned?
No. You see, when you begin to plan protests, well, if you have an organized society or a group like the ASU, the NLC, because they have a database of their membership. And as they are going to the streets, they are able to identify everybody who will be participating in that protest. You know, we are very fast and quick to say that you can actually protest and you don't need police permit. But during the protest, the same protesters who will tell you that they don't need police permit to protest will begin to demand for police protection. You have told the police that we don't need them to carry out this action. But because things are no longer going as planned, especially most times when, you know, people mobilize and they pay protesters. Because we have seen cases, even my friend Dino Melaye and Showori, there have been times that they will mobilize people to protest, and at the cost of disbursing the people that they have mobilized, the issues now begin to crop up as to how much, who gets what, and all of that. And they begin to fight. Then, in the face of this fight, they begin to invite the police that they've earlier told to stay off the protest to now come to intervene. Now, to the point the caller has made, it is very, very important for us, you know, to know that protests, like my colleague here has equally said that the police ought to know that the protesters should be protected and public facilities should be protected. And this is where, you know, the question of good conscience and even a morality should come into play. At the point you start the protest, and you know very well that this protest is being hijacked. Because the first week of the protest, all of us, I was abroad, we all supported the protest. And by the time we saw that, you know, there were threats to other free citizens in Nigeria, people could not access the airport, you know, people were planning to attack private businesses and all of that. Of course, as reasonable members of the society, we could all see that, you know, something was going wrong.
Okay,
and if you are a genuine protester, if you are a genuine protester and you have the interest of the country at heart, Mr. Faz Falana, at a point he withdrew from the protest and said, if we can't go to the table, I will no longer be a party to this protest.
Okay, let me bring in Kemi now. I beg your pardon. Kemi has been holding on for quite a while, and we do thank you. Kemi in Maryland. I'm so sorry, Kemi. Kemi in Maryland, we lost that call. I was just coming to you as the call ended. Group captain. Oh, are we the group captain? Oh, I'm so sorry about that. But Tony, this whole point about an agenda for the protest as opposed to it being, because government is now investigating those, you know, things. I imagine all sorts of investigations have started. You've made the point about, look, people have freedom of whatever participation. They don't have to go to any particular committee. But how do we find out exactly what happened and therefore use that as part of the database that we will need to have if this kind of a thing, if it's not to go bad like this again?
The police don't seem to have much problem, except and I believe that they are capable of doing what they want to do if they want to do it.
Let me take John in Kaduna. I beg your pardon. Good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning, Yakoyori. Good morning.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Go ahead, please.
I want to speak to Kuyori on the program.
Yes, you are now live on the program. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'm very happy for this program which you organize here almost every day. And
carry on, please.
Brother Philip said that
okay.
In the protest. I want to actually say that this type of program was not instigated by anybody. In Nigeria, youth are actually tired over the years. In fact, they were pushed to the wall whereby they have to come out of their home, mobilize, and carry out this protest. Nobody is instigating it. It is out of their mind, out of their sources, out of their inability for them to get a job in their own country. If the whole youth of this country left this country to abroad, who will protect you? The youth are made to protect this country. If they all leave this country and go abroad, Nigeria will be left to be vulnerable. Our will be vulnerable because nobody is there to protect them again. The Bible says the children are made to serve your table and make you happy. Now the children all left your home. You are there with your wife alone. Who will protect you? Who are you going to send? Who are you going to talk to? So Nigerian government should listen to the youth and do what they are bidding for. They are bidding for their right, and the Nigeria government should listen and do the right thing. So let us support the youth and make Nigeria government to know that, yes, they have paid the youth. They have paid the youth completely. Let them go back to joint table and make sure the youth are recognized. Thank you very much, Okoyori.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, John, for calling in. And saying, Kemi, if you're still watching, please try again. Try and get in again, Kemi. Just as we came to you, Kemi, in Maryland, it happened the way it happened. Now, of course, we're looking into how we don't have another day like the 22nd of November 2020. Arguably, it could have been avoided. I don't know how hard, because there are professionals, there are security people, there are intelligence people who know more about this matter. But most Nigerians would have wanted to be able to erase, that particular day. However, it came. Okay, go ahead, Tony, because if you have an issue with that statement.
Yes, I was actually saying that all the police needed to do is gather for example, all the video you have on social medias. Even you on your own, you could see the young man that was taking the stone to hit the vehicle and vandalize the vehicle.
But we understand the police has done very well in that regard. All sorts of people who stole police uniforms and all those things. We understand that those people are in custody.
That would help a lot. And another thing is that, but they now need a lot of diplomacy and tact, especially when it comes to this arrest and prosecution. They should reduce media prosecution and make it more of a professional prosecution. Because, don't forget that you have divergent
professional as in criminal prosecution.
No, what I'm saying,
because when you said media prosecution as opposed to...
Now, what I'm saying in essence is, so far so well, the police has been able to be quiet about who is arrested, who is being prosecuted and the like, which is a good one, which is a perfectly good one, as far as I'm concerned.
The police is coming back.
Yes, the only thing is that those ones that are randomly arrested, if they've been able to see that they don't have any issue, they should release them rather than just this barrage of 500 people being arraigned in court at once. So at their own level, they should be able to conduct some preliminary investigation and release those that ought to be released.
Okay. As I was saying, we'll be going to Osun to cover the governor tomorrow. The governor presenting the next budget of the state. But we'll continue with our international audience as our Nigerian audience will be taken to Abuja. Henry, thank you very much for holding on. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. I have to call back again?
No, you can speak now, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm watching the program live, and I want to tell Okoyori that...
Carry on, please.
Okoyori?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Agbete there used to be a youth with us that does protests, and I'm so surprised that he's not speaking for the youth. Okay, Agbete there used to be a youth with us that does
Carry on, please, Henry. Just go ahead. Go ahead speaking.
It's so bad that the gentleman know that they're speaking seriously for the youth. I am meant to say that Agbete, you are supposed to know that you are a replica of somebody who's supposed to speak for the youth for us. And I expect you as an activist to say the truth and tell the truth at all times so that you can help the youth. The country has failed this youth woefully, and our leaders should be...
Okay, we got enough out of that. Apparently, the man, thinks he knows you. As I said, we will cut away to, Abuja, to Osun State, where we'll be witnessing for our Nigerian viewers the presentation of the 2021 budget. But we'll continue as usual with our international audience. Please go ahead if you wanted to respond to that. He says he knows you and he's surprised by the position you're taking, that he would have expected that you would be speaking for the youth.
Thank you very much. The voice is very familiar.
Oh, okay. Henry.
Henry
in Abuja.
Yes, that should be Henry Oku, my very good friend.
Okay.
I have not left the youth, and I will never leave the youth. We were together in the university, and all of us, we canvassed for the welfare of our institution. We were together at University of Ilori, where all of us serve as parliamentarians. And my position between that time and now has not changed. And I believe that my position will never change. One, if your anger is not constructive, we will have the kind of situation that we're having today. For instance, some of the institutions that were burnt down. Okay, back then, in University of Ilorin, we planned to protest against school authority Times Without Number. We issued notice of protest, and Times Without Number were invited by the authorities to dialogue. And even there were times that, we were told by the police that, students who have been rusticated have been planning protests. And if we, the legitimate students, choose to go out to protest, and these ones decide to join, because they are no longer students and bitter with the institution.
Okay.
Because these people are bitter with the institution, there's every likelihood that they will take over the protest and destroy university properties. Coming back to the recent protests in Nigeria.
Very briefly, please, because I understand I must wrap up.
Okay, we are all in support of the youth. We want a better Nigeria for all of us, not just the youth, even for the generation that is yet unborn. But what we are saying is that we cannot change the country through this drastic measure. And we cannot change the country, change things in the country with all this vested interest. People calling on people to use the protest to kill members of another ethnic group, destroy government properties. Because by the time we finish all this destruction, it is still going to be our country.
We will still
and
have
I am
the rules
sorry
on our hands.
if I did not participate in burning the country to say that I have left the youth.
Okay. Tony, closer, please, because I've just understood that we have to wrap up.
Well, I think we all desire peace, and whatever it will take to achieve peace. But I think that the ball is more on the government's court. Yes.
Good governance.
Yes. Not just good governance. There are some things that should be
people
left.
say the youth have been disappointed.
Not just good governance. Good governance, and there are some issues that should be let go.
Okay.
The issue of freezing accounts, the issue of seizing people's passport because they participated in EndSARS, as far as I'm concerned, is laying a foundation for another anger.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there now, Tony. Tony Ofoyeton, thank you very much. And Philip Agbese, thank you also very much. Indeed, thanks also to you out there for contributing to the program. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folani. Bye-bye for now.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.